What's up, world? I go by the name of Jabari. Another Monday, another Words with Friends podcast. We've been gone for a little bit, been a little busy, traveling a lot, had a lot of stuff to do, but I'm glad that you guys are listening, glad that you guys are back, and we have a very special guest today. But as always, you guys know we have to do a little business first. If you guys are enjoying the podcast, if you guys want to keep supporting the podcast and make sure it happens, you can donate as little as $1 to the podcast. Go to patreon.com, patreon.com/Jabari, and show your support with as little as $1 tip for the podcast. All right, now that that's out the way, today we have Zim. I'm going to butcher your last name, so you're going to have to, yeah, you're going to have to say it to these people and introduce yourself. But we have Zim from Travel Noire. Introduce yourself, Zim. Let everybody know what you do.
So my name is Zim Ugochukwu. I am the founder and CEO of Travel Noire. It is a digital publishing platform, and we create tools and resources for the unconventional traveler. So that is what we do.
Nice. And I mean, Zim is, of course, traveling right now. Let me know where you're at. I know you're in Greece right now, but tell me a little bit about why you're there and what your Airbnb situation is like, because I know you had some crazy stuff going on today.
Yeah, so I'm in Athens. I came here on Wednesday, and I was trying to find my way to my second Airbnb. And there was a hailstorm, and I was just walking around, minding my own business, had my little rinky-dink umbrella from Brazil, and that umbrella just got inverted, turned inside out, almost blown down the street. I had all my electronics in my open bag, and so I had to huddle down on the ground with my broken umbrella over my bag while it was hailing like nobody's business. Water was flooding the streets, cars going down the road, etc. So it was supposed to take me, 30 minutes, took me 2 hours, and my Airbnb host had to come and rescue me, which was fine. I'm here for a conference, so It's work. But I get to see some of the really, really cool regions of Greece starting on Sunday. So I'm really excited about that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, when you travel and stuff like that happens and it's unexpected, do you get upset, or does it mess up your experience, or how do you handle those challenges? Just like little basic life challenges, because when something like that happens in your home, it's one thing, but when it happens in your in a whole nother country where people speak a different language, it could multiply the problem.
Oh, yeah. Every city that I go to, no matter if it's in the U.S. or if it's abroad, I always get lost. And, it really is all about perspective. When I'm hungry, I'm a little bit more angry. And if I'm getting lost, I'm here by myself. So that's another thing. So I'm a solo African-American woman traveling in a foreign country by herself. It really is all about perspective. And I couldn't help but giggle inside when I was caught up in the hailstorm, because in my head, I'm like, man, this will make a great story for my kids one day. And it really is all about perspective. And yes, you can get frustrated, but at the end of the day, are you going to get any closer to the destination that you're trying to get to? The answer is no. Yeah. So, you got to take things like that with a grain of salt. It's what makes travel exciting, those unexpected moments. I mean, here in Greece, the script is completely different. And I've taught myself to read some of the characters. So, I mean, obviously the Greek alphabet is, you have your deltas, your sigmas, all those things that I've been familiar with most of my life. It's really cool to see some of that stuff put into action. So when I am lost, I'm at least able to, read some signs and try and figure my way out.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about, how did you grow up? And were you traveling a lot, in your childhood? Is that what sparked this movement, or, was it something that you always wanted to do?
Yeah, well, so I flew on my first plane by myself when I was 9. And then I flew 2 more times by myself before I was 12. So I did a lot of solo travel, as weird as that sounds, before I was the age of 12. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that my mom was a single mom and she couldn't be everywhere that we were all the time. So she, we grew up with that sort of independent spirit. And, in college, I was the vice president of a anti-tobacco organization. So we did a lot of traveling around the U.S. to different high schools and middle schools and talked to young people about tobacco. And at the same time, I started my own organization. So I was doing a lot of traveling in college. I had to write a lot of absentee notes and all that good stuff. But travel had always been at some point, a part of my life, a big part of my life. And when I graduated college, I sold everything that I owned and I moved to India. I got an opportunity to move to India. And so I obviously I hopped on that opportunity. And
now, I know we've spoken about this before, but explain what was that opportunity, And
Yeah. So it was the Henry Luce Scholars Program. And so Henry Luce was the founder of Time Magazine, Sports Illustrated. He was a publisher, big publisher. And he grew up in China. His parents were missionaries. And when he returned back to the U.S., he realized how important his time in China was to his publishing career. So when he died, he left all of his money to a foundation in his name, the Henry Luce Foundation, and they work with Asian nations to facilitate the cultural exchange between America and Asian countries. And out of that foundation is the Henry Luce Scholars Program. So you have every year they choose 15 to 18 young people who are doing really cool things in different fields, and they let them choose their countries, they let them choose their placements. And they sent them there for a year, all expenses paid. They pay a salary. It was the best year of my life. I mean, I was in India. I did a lot of traveling. Me and another fellow, we went to almost every country in Asia.
Wow.
While, some of the other fellows were more sort of attentive to their job placements. My job placement and the other fellow that I traveled with, ours sort of fell through. So our advisors encouraged us to travel. And so, we were literally being paid this American salary to travel in India, which is dirt cheap, or Cambodia, or, Indonesia, et cetera, et cetera.
Now, when you get to places like that, right? India, Cambodia, Indonesia, number one, people don't look like you, right? So when you get there, how do you adapt to the culture? How do you even communicate with people when they're speaking a completely different language? And how do you, sort of live your life there?
Yeah. No, so in India, I was fortunate enough to, and I worked, relatively hard. I learned Hindi. I learned to speak and I learned to read and write.
Wow.
And
how long did that take?
Reading Hindi probably took me probably a couple months. Speaking. So one of the cool things about Hindi is that if you don't know a noun, you can always say it in English, because English is a national language in India. And that, speaking is always ongoing. It's always ongoing. But a lot of times when people would try to mess with me, or the auto rickshaw drivers would try to mess with me, I'd always yell at them in Hindi, and they'd have this just shocked, they would just be shocked. I mean, this Black girl is out here speaking Hindi, speaking my language. So it was really interesting. So that was one thing that I was really adamant about, was learning the local language.
Yeah.
And, India is also a place of stares. They will stare at you, and it's just a part of the culture. And it's not out of malice. It's not out of, malintent or anything like that. It's just the curiosity. But, if you're being stared at every single turn, and every time you do something, somebody's watching you, it gets annoying really fast.
Yeah.
People would be like 2 centimeters away from my face with their phones because they'd be interested in taking pictures. People would take side pictures, like hold their phone up to the side and try to snap a picture of you, being So it was a lot to get used to. I always say that my time in India prepared me for any country in the world.
Wow.
Just because there was a lot that could happen on a daily basis. India is just one of those places. As far as other cultures, if I didn't speak the language, so for instance, in China, I was in rural China. I didn't speak a lick of Chinese, and obviously the characters are different. So even if you have the address of something, if it's written in Roman, in the Roman alphabet, so your A, B, C, D, E, F, G,
Yep.
your average Chinese person can't read that because they read Chinese characters. So even when I'd get lost, I could show them a map, and if the street was in Roman characters, they wouldn't know what I was talking about. And so a lot of what I did was a lot of sign language. And obviously I don't know sign language. I'm not certified at all, but it was one of those things. It was one of those like fun, everybody can understand, motions, right? If you say I'm hungry and you put food to your mouth. I remember me and a friend were trying to get gas for our scooter. And the lady had no idea what we were talking about. We went into the store, some grocery store, and we were like, "Hey, we need gas for our scooter. Our scooter's gonna die." And she looked at me like, "What?" So I had to run outside and I had to point to the gas tank. I had to fake like I was putting gas in the tank, and I had to sit on the bike and pretend to rev it up. So it was like this whole like intricate kind of production, but it was a lot of fun. And it gets locals smiling when they see that you're actually trying to make an effort. And so it's people come up to me all the time and they're like, "Well, what if I don't know the language? I'm scared of getting lost." And what I say to that is prepare yourself. If you know that when you land at the airport, you need to be in that place, MapQuest, use Google Maps beforehand and, map that situation out. But even coming to Greece, I don't know how to say anything. I don't know how to say thank you. I don't know how to say hello. I don't know. I'm one of those kinds of travelers that just likes to dive in. Some people like to get guidebooks. Some people like to get phrase books or things like that. And I think I've gotten to the point where, a lot of things can be thrown at me and I won't I'll still be able to manage. So.
Wow. Now, okay, so, you mentioned something that I want to talk about a little bit is, when people I'm sure ask you for advice. I mean, whether it's people that people that are coming through the site, through social media, because because of how much you travel. Now, a big thing I'm sure that people say is like what you said is people are scared and they might say, well, giving a whole bunch of excuses on why they can't do it, and the fear starts to creep in on why you can't or why people don't want to travel. What are some of the biggest fears you think that people have when it comes to traveling, especially abroad?
Well, I think there are three main ones. One is the fear of traveling alone. Mm-hmm. The second is the fear of finances, and the third is time off. If I take time off of work to go travel and I get back, are they going to fire me? How do I get more vacation days, et cetera, et cetera? So those are some of the top three fears that I've found sort of hold people back.
Yeah, and in America, travel. We have the worst vacation time, out of all developed nations. It's insane. We get the 2 weeks and that's it. That's
it. I was actually on a plane from Rome here to Athens, and I was sitting next to an Australian woman. And no matter where in the world you are, you can be in the jungle. You will find yourself beside an Australian at some point during your journey. This lady is a correction facilities officer. She gets 7 weeks of paid vacation.
Wow.
Plus 4 weeks of sick vacation or sick leave, paid sick leave. So that's a total of 11 weeks. That's almost 3 months of vacation.
Wow.
And, I was sitting in my seat like, you got to be kidding me. Here we are in the U.S. trying to maximize every little day that we can. Memorial Day, maybe we can take an unpaid work day and we can do this and we can do that. And she's out there with, 3 months worth of vacation. She can
Yeah.
literally take a month off every 2 months.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy because what people don't understand is that stuff maximizes productivity instead of like it doesn't take away from it. When you allow people to have time for themselves and go experience new things, they come back recharged, re-energized, and they work harder instead of working them to the bone and making them feel like they have to, sneak off somewhere or lie to their boss about their kid being sick or something just to take a family
Right.
vacation. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay, so how do you think people can overcome some of these fears? So?
Well, traveling solo it's a mind thing. It's a total mind thing. Once you get, I mean, especially in the African American community, we like to do things in groups. Nobody goes to the club or whatever by themselves. Nobody goes to eat by themselves. Nobody goes to the movies by themselves. I was one of those kids though. I can't even lie. I did a lot of things by myself, and I was just like
me too.
that weird. I was just that weird kid, and it just takes. I was walking in Athens the first day that I got here, and I was by myself. I was coming back from a coffee shop, and I was like, man, this is nice. I don't have anybody to answer to. I'm walking down the street. I can go into Zara if I want to. I cannot go into Zara if I want to. I have my own agenda. I set my own schedule. And so I think that solo travel is this huge giant that people sort of make up in their mind, and it's a really freeing experience knowing that when you're in a foreign country you have to rely on yourself and you have to rely on the goodness of other people. And it's a beautiful experience, and until people sort of take that step out of their comfort zone, they will never know what solo travel feels like. I had one woman write me, and she said, I was going to Greece, and I think she said somebody back the next 3 or 4 weeks trying to find somebody to go. She was desperate. She's like, I'll pay for half your trip, I'll do this, I'll do that, and either nobody had the vacation time or they just weren't trying to go. And she ended up, she was literally a couple of days before, she was like thinking about canceling the trip. She ended up going on this trip to Santorini by herself, and she said that it changed her life. Wow. For her to be able to rely on herself, for her to be able to do whatever it is that's on her agenda alone and not worry about a group of 4 or 5 other friends and trying to please everybody. She was literally by herself. Every year I make it a point to take a think week. A think week is what Bill Gates took. I think he still takes them every year. It's a week-long sort of sabbatical where you can rent an Airbnb in the woods. You can, I've had a think week on the beaches of Myanmar and just random places. And I read a lot. I journal a lot. I read the Bible. I pray. I do all these different things, and there are no other people involved.
Yeah.
And it's challenging for me. It's really challenging to be by yourself for that amount of time. But when you come out, you are just so refreshed. You're ready to be poured into. And, in life, a lot of things are going to happen to you by yourself that nobody's going to be able to be there for. So, why not travel? Why not, add that one other solo thing to your bucket list?
Yeah,
and then, finances will always, money will always be a problem. No matter if you're rich, money is still a problem. If you're middle class, money is still a problem. If you're poor, money is still a problem. Money is always a problem.
Yep.
And if money is always a problem, you can't. If money is always the problem, you're gonna have to figure out how to move anyway. So that's what I like to tell people. For me, every month, in addition to my savings account, in addition to some other things that I save up for, I had a travel fund. And every month I would every week I would automatically draft money into my travel fund.
Yeah.
And I didn't see that money. It's more painful when you have to take money out of your checking account manually than it is if you automatically draft it, because you don't know when it's going to come out. You don't know what that money looks like in your account or whatever. And it becomes easier. If you saved I don't know, less than $100 a month. I mean, by the end of the year, you'd have enough money to buy a plane ticket to almost anywhere in the world.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean,
And
go ahead, go ahead.
no, that was all.
Well, that's what I think. That's kind of what I wanted to talk about next. Was so many people they look at travel, and we've talked about this before. People look at travel as sort of like a luxury. And something that is a privilege, and it obviously is a privilege. But at the same time, I think it's just a mind state when you look at it as something that is a more so a necessity. I need to do this, just like you need to, I don't know, pay your bills, or you need to, because
Right.
travel it's so important to your personal development, and the things that you offer, to the world. Like when you go somewhere new, it just adds to that. So I mean, when it comes to finances and people sort of being scared or just not willing to travel because of finances. I mean, are there any type of tips or tricks on how to travel on a budget, or sites that people can go
Yeah.
to, all of that? I just want to let people know about some of these things.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, if I could ride the fellowship train until the wheels fell off, I would have totally done it. I mean, the Loose was so good to us. The foundation it has a lot. They spend a lot of money on that program every year, and it's so reassuring to know that money is out there. Money is out there.
Yeah.
If you have a skill set and you're good at what you do, I can almost guarantee that you can find somebody to pay for you to go do whatever it is that you're good at in the context of another culture.
Yeah.
So one of the
But remember, everybody, be good at what you do. So work hard at being good at what you do. All right? It's not
work
just,
hard and
you
be
can't
good
just
at
be
what you
average.
do. Exactly. You can't just be average. Some of these, the Loose program, I had to go through, I think I had 8 interviews in one day. I mean, it was a very, very rigorous selection process, but they do that to find the right people. And the reward, I mean, the benefits and the rewards paid off. I have a book that I recommend to everybody. I read it on my my junior year in college, and that's how I found out about the Loose. It's called Delaying the Real World by Colleen Kinder. It is about $1.50, I think, on Amazon if you buy it used. That book is chock full of resources on, so let's say you want to house sit somebody's mansion in Peru, or you want to become a hot air balloon operator in Tuscany, or you want to do an academic fellowship in Ireland. All of those resources are in that book. So you basically go through the book, and it sections off the book in by type of experience. So if you want like an adventure experience, if you want an academic one, if you want luxury or whatever, then it lists out basically everything that you need to do. So this is who you need to email, this is what the program is about, this is what you can expect, et cetera, et cetera. And it's a really amazing resource that I think everybody should have in their toolkit as a starter. And then on top of that, research.
Yes.
I spent almost 2 months trying to find a program that was the right fit for me. I didn't know anything about Asia, and I wasn't really turned on to Asia at all. And that's what the Loose Scholars program was looking for. They were looking for people who didn't have any sort of ties to Asia whatsoever. And now I'm like an Asia freak. Like you can't even, like you can't put Asia and not put Zim in the same sentence.
Wow.
But in addition to fellowships, and in addition to saving up your travel fund, I just purchased a round trip ticket from Houston to Bombay, India for $199 on Emirates Airlines.
What?
Last week. And so it's about, I mean, on Travel Noire on our Instagram, we post a lot of these ridiculous flight deals. My team and I were really maniacal about finding really cool deals because I want to show people that travel isn't as ridiculous as people think.
Yeah.
It's not going to empty out your wallet. In addition to this $200 ticket to India, I did $120 ticket to no, it was Milan, and so forth and so on. A couple days ago, there was a $150 flight from Boston to Iceland. And so like a lot of these different tips and tricks are things that we all talk about on travelnoir.com. We have a really interesting series of online events. So we do video chats with our contributors to the site. And then we also have Twitter chats, and those happen monthly. But they're all geared at giving our audience the tools and resources they need to travel better, farther, and cheaper than they've ever imagined.
Nice, nice. Now, I want to talk a little bit about Travel Noir in a second. But so when you go to these places, like sometimes will it just be a situation where you'll see a flight deal and you won't even have any particular plans, but you're just like, I can't pass up on this price?
Yep.
And then, okay, got it. So
I will just look at that ticket and I'll say, oh, well, Egypt was never on the radar, but okay, this ticket's $75. Well, I have nothing to lose. And it's one of those things where you have to book now, think later.
Yeah.
For the Emirates ticket, those things were going like hotcakes. And I was like, well, I can't really afford to sit down and be like, okay, well, this is the hotel I want to stay at.
Yeah.
This is the car I want to rent. This is who I want to bring. I called a couple of my close friends. I mean, it was at almost midnight Pacific time. So it was 3 a.m. Eastern time. So a lot of East Coasters were sleeping.
Yep.
So I was waking people out of sleep, and they were sleep talking, telling me they didn't care. But then the next morning they really did care, and they were upset because the fare was gone. But, it's, yeah. So I mean, yeah.
when you go to these places, is it do you just have a standard sort of, okay, I definitely know once the flight is booked, I got to get an Airbnb, or is it, maybe you'll do a hotel, or does it vary?
I typically do Airbnbs because the value for me is a lot higher. Like right now I'm in this really amazing rustic studio. And this thing was $50.
Yeah.
And so, you get that sort of local feel. And you also meet some really, really interesting people. Like I have some friends. I stayed at an Airbnb for the past couple of days, and they're inviting me to stay at their house again, and I don't have to pay. And so like you sort of like forge these friendships and relationships with individuals who you might not have otherwise met through Airbnb.
Yeah.
But I typically I'll like browse through the Airbnbs once I like book my ticket just to see what kinds of things to offer. But I typically won't do that until way, way, way closer to the date, like 3 weeks.
Yeah, because Airbnb is not something that the price doesn't like go up like a hotel if you book it, or
Right.
a flight. If you can book it, pretty much whenever, and you know that the price is gonna sort of stay the same.
Exactly.
Now, okay, so Travel Noir. Let's talk about what was the inspiration behind starting it? Was it just I've been to just X amount of countries, I want to get other people involved in this, and also Zim, do you roughly even know how many places you've been at this point? How many countries?
I literally have no idea. I actually make it a point not to know. I think I have an idea. Like at my last count, maybe after India, it was maybe 25. Maybe it's closer to 35. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. But for me, it's never really about the number count. It's all about getting to know a particular destination or getting to know a particular culture. Because there have been countries that I've been to where I've just been there for a layover.
Yep,
and
yep.
If you step out the airport, that's a passport stamp.
Yep.
And so for me, it's really about being able to experience a culture. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So Travel Noir. So you started it, and did it start as just an Instagram page, or
no?
Okay. It started
Actually,
as a site.
so when I was living in India and traveling in Asia, I didn't see anybody who looked like me, and at the same time, I would tell my friends, hey, I just booked the $8 flight from Bangalore to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. and they would be like, "Are you flying with chickens, or how is a flight that cheap?" And I'm like, "No, it's standard."
Yeah.
And you know, it was when I came home that I started to do more research. And even though the market is so big, so African Americans, not even people of the African diaspora, but African Americans spend $46 billion every year on travel in the U.S. alone. And
Now that's traveling within the U.S.?
Within the U.S.
Wow.
Only in the U.S.
Wow.
And nobody's tapping into that market.
Yeah.
And, you know,
that's a lot of family reunions and, you know,
exactly.
Graduations and all that stuff.
And, you know, brands started to believe that stereotype that African Americans didn't travel farther than the Caribbean islands. It was just like your Miamis, your Vegas, Atlanta, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, once I started the blog, so it started out as travelnoire.com, this platform. We started out with, I think, 15 curators. Now it's grown to 115.
Wow.
And our curators live all over the world and are just so passionate about travel and helping other people experience travel through their eyes. Like, my goal for travelnoire.com is when you're reading a story, you actually feel like you're there.
Yeah.
And you know, funny story about the Instagram, when I first opened the account and I was searching on Instagram, I was like, all right, where do I start? Black travelers. Okay. 2 pictures. Okay, cool. I'm Black, I travel. 1 picture. Like, I went through all of these hashtags and there was literally nothing.
Wow.
There was nothing. And, you know, I got discouraged. I was like, I mean, maybe we're not out here like that. And things started to grow, and they started to grow really, really fast. And, you know, it's all about validation in the end. When you see somebody who looks like you doing something that you never thought you could do, that thing becomes possible. And so if I'm showing you in Iceland, or I'm showing you in Senegal, or you in Egypt or India or Bhutan or the Philippines, you start to see yourself in those places. And that $1,000 ticket or that $1,000 trip you were going to take to Miami for the 3rd time in the past 5 years
exactly.
now becomes a trip to Morocco, where you're able to stretch your dollar farther. And so what that's done for brands is that's sort of unlocked it's opened the doors. How can we engage this community in an authentic way that really speaks to this community, but also to our brand as well? And so brands will approach us and will craft certain campaigns and different things like that that will excite our audience and will bring, you know, in the end, greater trust, greater loyalty, et cetera, et cetera. So
yeah. And I mean, I'm just looking at just the hashtag alone right now, and it's over 35,000 posts with that with the Travel Noire hashtag. That's insane. Wow.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. We you know, over the summer we made a concerted effort to get our numbers up, because, you know, at the start of the summer we were probably at about 5,000 unique visitors a month, and today we're doing at about 35,000 unique visitors a month. And so it really was this very targeted effort to make sure that our stories were being read, that they were being seen all over the internet. And yeah, so it's the growth has been incredible, but I think that what's been even more incredible is seeing individuals who have taken their first trip at Storytime. There's a girl named Sierra. I gotta shout her out because she's written me on more than one occasion. She's 18 years old, just graduated from high school earlier this year, and decided that she was gonna skip the first year of college and move to Ecuador. And this girl, Sierra, 6 months ago, didn't have a passport. And she started following Travel Noire. She started to see people who looked like her in these really interesting places. And she started to see herself in those people who were in really interesting places. She went to travelnoire.com. She read up on stories. She read up on resources. She followed our Hangouts. She followed our Twitter chats, and decided to sign on with a gap year program, and she'll be living in Ecuador for a year. This is an 18-year-old girl who didn't even have a passport,
Wow.
you know, and for her to be not only taking her first international trip, but it's her first she's living abroad for her first trip. That always just like blows my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean
So
that lets you know that what you're doing is impacting people's lives, and that will go on to impact other people's lives, and it's just it's motivation. It's definitely motivation to just continue.
absolutely,
Wow.
absolutely.
So tell being a traveler is one thing, but also talk to me a little bit about entrepreneurship, and what are some of the things that you've learned by being a traveling entrepreneur? Because so many people, it's already hard enough to be an entrepreneur and just like getting things off the ground, for your business and for the service you provide in one place, and managing a team in one place. But talk a little bit about how you have to manage a team of, a bunch of people all over the world. I mean, and then at the same time doing this while traveling all the time. How do you work all this stuff out?
It's definitely a challenge. One of the ways that I minimized risk, at least in the beginning, was I launched Travel Noire while I was still working a full-time job. I wanted to see if it had legs, and 8 months later it had 25 legs, and I was like, okay, I know this is gonna work. So I sort of phased out of my job, and having a remote team isn't easy by far, but having a motivated remote team is even better.
Yeah.
And it gives individuals the freedom to live their lives. We have about 17 people on the team, and they live everywhere. And they all do different things for the company. And it's I've learned about myself that I can only travel so much, right? If I'm at an Airbnb and I'm being hosted by people, or I'm seeing friends, I have to entertain those friends. And if I'm entertaining those friends, I can't do the work that I need to do.
Yeah.
So it's like that fine line of being able to balance the work that you have to do at the same time as being, social. When I'm back home in San Francisco, none of my friends see me because I'm always locked up somewhere doing work.
Yep.
And, it's definitely not the glamorous side of business, but it's the side that gets things done. And, people look at my profile and they see that I've been to all these places and that I'm traveling. What they don't see are the long hours and the days that I don't leave my house. If I don't leave my house like 4 days at a time because I'm working so much. Like these are the things that, as an entrepreneur, you have to be able to sacrifice. You have to be able to give up.
Yep.
And so, I mean, Jabari, you know this all too well. It's just the hustle that comes with the job. You want the life of freedom, you're going to have to work for it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, people, I mean, I don't really have a social life, but luckily the work that I do. No. I mean, no. The work that I do is social. So let's say, you know what I mean? That's pretty much. But I don't really. I mean, I hang out with my friends occasionally, but it's weird because my friends, I work with my friends, so it's like, even if we're hanging out, something's getting done. We're plotting and scheming or, designing something, and like, that's just, that's just so even, I don't know, it's weird because on the one hand, my life feels a lot like, I'm never working, but I'm always working. But I love the stuff that I do, so it doesn't feel like work. So you know what I mean? So it's just that's what it is. But then you do that. Like, I mean, the other day I was like in DC and I was just doing accounting for like 2 days straight, and like that was whack. Like, I was trying to party, but I couldn't. So, but okay. So so where do you want the future of Travel Noire to go? What are you hoping that this becomes?
Oh, we've got some exciting things on the horizon. We have a product launch on November 5th.
I saw the teaser video for that. It looked good.
Yeah. So I'm super, super excited about that. And we have actually a couple other products rolling out through 2015 that are really exciting as well. We're keeping everything on the hush. Everything is stealth, but I can guarantee that, you know, this is something that the people have been asking for, that they've been wanting. And all in all, you know, I am really excited to work with brands who want to sort of amplify not only their message, but the message that aligns with, you know, our message. And I think that at the end of the day, Travel Noire is going to be more than travel. It's going to be about living unconventionally, right? You know, when I grew up and when I was living in North Carolina, I heard a lot of black people can't do that, or a lot of black people can't do this. And you know, who's to say that you can't do anything? Yep. And you know, at the end of the day, Travel Noire, we're going for world domination. So this is one of the things that I've learned as an entrepreneur. Just because big brands are hitting you up doesn't mean that you have to work with them. You know, I think that if whatever that large brand is trying to do, if it's not in alignment with what you're doing, you can end up sabotaging your entire brand. Yes. And I'm very, very picky about what goes in front of our audience, because I think that our audience deserves the absolute best. And if you're a brand, if you're a large brand, if you're a huge conglomerate, if you're presenting yourself to us in a way that does not align with our values or align with our beliefs, then, you know, we're not going to work with you. And that doesn't mean that we're not going to work with you forever, just not now and with that idea that you have. And so, you know, that's one thing that, you know, a lot of entrepreneurs, they get excited when large brands start to see them and they start to, you know, notice the brands. Yep. But that isn't always a good thing. So make sure that you know what your gives and your gets are with the relationship, and that every side wins. Because if it's not a win-win-win, then it's not a win.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I think that's something that a lot of budding entrepreneurs who are sort of in that second phase of whatever it is that they're doing, you know, when you start to see that stuff happen, yeah, it's exciting, but you just can't take every opportunity because it might not be a good one.
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely.
Well, Zim, thank you so much for being on here. And as you guys know, if you're enjoying these podcasts, if you like this and you want more, go to patreon.com/Jabari, and you guys can leave as little as a $1 tip so we can keep the podcast going. Zim, please let everybody know where they can follow Travel Noire at and get all the latest information on what you guys have going on.
Yeah, so Instagram, Twitter, Facebook is @Travel Noire. YouTube is The Travel Noire and travelnoire.com. For me, I am Zimism, Zimism on all social networks, and zimism.com.
Nice. I'm very excited to this product launch. And you guys will be seeing many more things from Travel Noire and I.
That's right.
And all this stuff. So just stay tuned, stay posted. All right. All right, cool, Zim. All right.